The foundation of an arranger workstation is really all about the style. For this particular video, I want to explain the style control section, but more important, once you understand this section fully, I think it will help you understand the supplement videos that later on you will discover on how to create a style, how to manipulate a style, how to mix the style. So without any further ado, let's kind of dive into the style control section and explain it really down to each button what it does. The style control section consists of several buttons. The first three buttons are your intros. As the number increases in the intro, it increases the complexity. So let me explain what I mean. Here's intro number 1. It was a simple count-in. So you heard the side stick and then roll comes in and the style starts. Intro number 2. Obviously, you heard a lot more complexity in the arrangement. There was a saxophone, the drummer was doing more rolls on the toms, etc. And finally, intro number 3 is the longest of all, and also it's the more complex and musically rich. The next part of the style control section are your variations. It follows the same logical order, where variation A is a simple arrangement of instrumentation, and all the way to variation D has more complex, sometimes brasses come in. And instead of talking about it too much, let me play a couple of demos from the same style and kind of switch between the variations themselves so you can hear the difference between them. Great. Now, as you heard also, there was a fill-in. Yes, every variation in itself has its own fill. And in a minute, I'll explain why it's doing the automatic fill by itself. We'll talk about that as well. The next part of the control section is a break. It's that simple. Basically, that's the button you push when you want to set a break. The next part of the style control section are your outros or endings. It follows the same order, where ending number 1 is a simple outro. Number 3 is more complex. There's actually a relationship between the intros and the outros. So there's a relationship between intro number 2 and outro number 3, or ending number 2, similarly to number 3 as well. As you noticed earlier, when I was switching between the variation, there was an automatic fill-in between those variations. You can control that by pressing the autofill on and off. So you have the control if you want that fill to be engaged when you switch the variation. That could be handy. It depends on the way you perform yourself, but the function could be turned on and off with this button right here. The last two components of the style control section are the accompaniment on and off, which turns the accompaniment on and off. So here's an example. On. So it allows you to take some of the instruments in and out by pressing this button, while the percussion and drums continue playing. And finally, the sync start and stop buttons. Those 3 buttons are very important. Obviously, the start and stop button, it starts the style. But notice that if I push start, there was a rather conflict between starting the style and the actual chords playing. That's where the sync start comes in. Whereas when this button is pushed, you can see the start button is blinking. My accompaniment is on. Now, the moment I play one chord, no matter what chord it is, both the drummer, the rhythmic part of the style, which is percussion and drums, and the bass and the guitar and the other instruments will all play at the same time, which is something that I personally like to have in real time, is to have the band basically start at the same time. Here's what it sounds like. And finally, the sync stop allows you to stop the style right in the middle and then pick it up again whenever you want to. And here's a demo of it. Just that simple to use. Tap tempo is directly related to the style control section, which allows you to tap in the tempo that you feel when you're about to play the music. So here's an example of what it sounds like. So you just do four taps and it picks up that tempo. This wraps up the style control section. Explain to you what each of those buttons do in relationship to the style itself. Thanks for watching.